When I was a kid, I used to hear all these stories of people's first car, and they used to talk about it with such like ambition. And when they're older, they usually try and go and find and buy that old car. And they always used to have like the coolest names, right? Like the Thunderbird, right? or the Firebird. Was a lot of them named after like birds? Hold on now. Wait, they had the Mustang. There's a horse. Um, just these really iconic like cars that you hear about and you're thinking, oh my goodness, when I get my first car, it's going to be great. And they try and slow you down, like, oh, you're going to have to work on it, put a wrench to it. That's what they used to say. And you're like, well, I can find a wrench, it can't be that hard. And then you get, your car, which isn't any of those, because you can't have those cars. So in your first car, some people, it's a variation. I've come when I was a kid, of course, I wanted the latest and greatest. I wanted a brand new car. Now looking back, I know I hate to say it, but I'm glad I did not. I've come to realize though that with my driving ability and visual prowess, which there is none of the visual prowess. I wouldn't say there's driving prowess, but I can drive. Can't really see, but those two kind of go hand in hand. So, I'm glad that I didn't get the latest and great because I hit everything. Not everything, but there were a few times. We'll get into it. So I got a 1995. That's right, 1995. What is it? What year isn't even that? Toyota Corolla. Okay. And I'm thinking, and they try and, how they give you the whole story, like who owned it before and how great of a vehicle and condition it's in. It's like, oh, one owner, it was a college kid and he like beefed it up to take it to college. And it was like, when did he take it to college? Back in 1995? I mean, and then you go get in a car and you're like, all right, well, at least you're going to go to a dealership. uh-uh. When you get this type of car, you ain't going to no dealership to buy it. You're gonna start driving down some roads that you didn't even know exist in a town or maybe a town over. It's usually maybe somebody you know. You wind up somebody you know's house, right? And you're like, wait a minute, I know this guy. And wait a minute, don't tell me I'm getting the car in the garage that's been on like a. That's the one. It was missing a tire. Yeah, no, it's back on there. And so we get this car, and oh my goodness, you're thinking either way, you're like humble that you have a car, right? And you're thinking, oh, it's been all detailed. College kid owned it. I was trying to psych myself up. By upgrades, they meant the person who had the car before me tried the tint like the back windows, and it did not work out. It looked like, when somebody does a bad job. Well, here it is. It looked like somebody had, and I'm sorry for this visual, vomited inside the film screen, right? Like you could barely see out of it. You could kind of see taillights, but you didn't know if it was like a fire hydrant or, an actual car. You couldn't figure it out because you could kind of see, luckily there's a rear view mirror, but it's looking at that puke stained, but it's a tint. That's what you got to tell people. Oh, yeah, he tried to, did it myself. Not even close. And then the other thing that they love to upgrade. See, the upgrades became less about mechanical and more about the interior and things that don't really matter. And you'll find this out if you keep your first car longer than a couple of years. You start to realize the maintenance on it is just ridiculous. You'll start paying more for that car than just getting a new car. And you won't realize it until you've already paid for a new car by fixing the old one. And at first, you'll just try to patch it together with glue and spit. I'm telling you, like, well, the only upgrades, well, actually, not to belittle myself, but my first upgrade was the radio as well. Bluetooth was a big thing. Um, but it was still one of those radios that, and get ready for this, for security purposes, right? Because you don't want people stealing your radio. Now it's like built into the car. You got to take the whole thing. But back in the day, whoa, taking radios was a thing. And so there was a button you could push. That's right, a button, not a screen. And the thing would pop out, like a it would eject out of the car, and then you'd grab it and you'd either lock it in the car or carry it around in your pocket. I'm not really sure what the next step to that was. All I know was there was a button and you were supposed to pop off the radio, and there you go. Because there are these things called sleepers. I'm getting right off track here, but I'm super excited. You ever heard of a sleeper car? No, it's not a car that goes to sleep. That's what I was like. Oh, what is a sleeper car? That's me is like nonchalant. Ooh, no, but it's a car like my car that they've actually done mechanical things to, like they put a V8 and some craziness and nitrous and whatever else they do. I don't. You can clearly tell that I don't know what I was doing. So when someone said take a wrench to it, I probably just threw a wrench at the car, hoping that would fix it. Like, hey, you ever try to do the maintenance by yourself? Oh my goodness, it never worked. I structurally the car just started failing after a few years, right? Because I had this crack. I want to find this crack. Wind up finding, right? Because at first the car just was leaking at times. It was just no matter where I went, there was just the car would leak, and I couldn't figure it out. And I realized that there was just like a tiny crack along what seemed to be a valuable part of the car. And when you have a car at that stage in your life, there's no funds to fix that car, and so you go to the store looking for any as seen on TV thing that you can find to fix this thing, because anything will work. First you try duct tape and hope. It's the first time you ever learned what hope was, right? You just like hope the thing gets you from point A to point B. And then I found this like putty. It was like an actual thing. I went to a guy and they're like, "Oh, you can buy this putty," and like it was basically like chewed bubble gum. I mean, I could tar. I'm not really sure, but it was a thing that where you puttied and you went up, you stuck it up there, and after an hour it would dry out and you would seal the crack. Sounds perfect, and for $15.99, sounds like a winner's choice. I bought 200 of those things. I mean, I don't know how many times, like sometimes it wouldn't stick or dry all the way, and then it was just a pile of glue on the floor. And maybe I couldn't follow simple instructions, but I'm telling you right now, like you just try any sort of band aid that you can fix. When that thing hit, and the only way to get rid of a car like that is to total it, because some of those first cars you wind up having for so long that you just like you don't know what to do, because you've invested so much money into keeping it going for no reason. When I bought the thing, it had 100,000 miles. I mean, the thing, I mean, way to go, car. It just kept going. But I mean, it was a band-aid and a half to keep it together. When it went, that crack exploded, and everything, all fluids, went onto the freeway. Actually, I freaked out. I had no idea what to do. It was one of those rare times you call like your parents because you're like, well, what, how, why, and then your father is just like, he pulled it up on Google because it did, and he was like, "Hey, you're causing a lot of traffic." I'm like, "Help!" Not. He was like, "No, I just wanted to. It's cool." No, and he started calling people into his office. Hey, look at this. No, my son's. He's blocking off the five. That's him. That's him right there. No, I'm on the phone with him. No. And then the tow truck driver was like, "Oh, we need you to turn on the car and move it off the highway because, of course, you're blocking the highway." I'm like, everything is on the. If I turn this engine, I don't know how sparks work, but this thing I might go 100 feet in the air. That would have been cool, but I don't want to. But no, right? So I was like, I don't think that's probably a good idea. And then he like looked under the car and just saw the pool of mixture of everything that the car had, and was like, oh, how, what? That doesn't happen. I was like, I tried to. There was some putty up there. No. So your first car is really one of those things where you cherish it and you cherish it too much. And now I've realized I think people are getting back to like fixing up cars mechanically. And now, even the first car, it has Bluetooth. So yeah, you don't have to worry about upgrading that. I don't know why I thought that was so important. You think things are so important until the structural part of the car just starts falling apart, and you're so excited because it does get you from point A to point B, and it's not as fabulous as a Thunderbird. Although, during those times, we used to try to name our cars. I don't know if that's a thing, or maybe just a couple idiots decided to do, but I couldn't name that POS. I mean, I loved the car. You have to try and love the car because, you try again. That's where that hope comes in, right? Sometimes you're just gripping on the steering wheel and come on, you can make it and you're okay and we're going to get along because if we don't, I can't make it to where I'm going. But crank up that music because the radio is blasting. It always confused people. You'd be driving around and the music would be coming out like crystal clear, but the car, as you could see, there was gum falling out the bottom of it. And I remember driving one time with my twin, and this guy on a bike was riding, and he looked at us, looked at the car, heard the blaring music, and literally like his all functions just stopped, and he just fell over on his bike. Like he literally just stopped riding. The bike came to a complete stop, and he himself just fell over. Like his brain just shut. He couldn't understand what was happening, and I totally agreed with him because I was sitting there just, you have to crank up the music so you don't structurally hear all the defects of the car. And so the louder somebody has their volume up, it's because structurally the car is making weird noises and you don't want to know what those weird noises are until things start shaking. That's a good sign that you got to turn that volume down and might listen a little bit because when the car starts shaking or rattling, that's when it overpowers the loud music. That's when you got an issue. I got way off track here with this first car business. But it's the memories that really hold you together with that first car. So we wound up calling my car Lassie. So cuz unfortunately Lassie is a car that it just barely gets there. So with that, now everything's built in. You got the Bluetooth and the AC. Oh man, you don't know what it's. I mean, people know what it's like being out in like hot plate. Like California didn't get that hot, but like you drive somewhere and then with no AC, like Anaheim in the summer, you just you just you're just a pile of goo no matter what befalls you. So the AC, it's the basics you need: AC, some Bluetooth, and a structurally fit car. What am I saying? I still haven't learned, right? I still haven't learned my lesson, and that's why, I'm gonna go and probably check my car. No, I'm just kidding. With that, thank you guys so much for hanging out, and we'll catch you guys all in the next one. Until next time, bye bye.